Now, when you think of Sydney, you guys probably think the Opera House, the Harbour Bridge, Bondi Beach. Just beautiful coastline, great weather, and that lifestyle that everybody dreams of. But what you probably don't think of is the toll road nightmare Sydney faces, because behind us, we have got the M4 WestConnex, and this is essentially linking the western suburbs into Sydney. And this isn't the only toll road. Oh no, there's a lot more. And Sydney, unfortunately, it's not only the most tolled city in Australia, it's actually the most tolled city in the world. Now here's one for you guys to ponder, because out of Sydney's 217 kilometer stretch of motorways, over 145 kilometers of that system is tolled. So over 60% of motorways here, you're gonna have to pay. Now we're standing over the M4 here, and if we continue onwards to Sydney, you're gonna hit the toll roads and you're gonna hit the WestConnex tunnel. If we go through, we're gonna have to obviously pay the toll. Now to build that bit of road, it did cost Transurban around $20 billion. So of course you're thinking, we gotta have a toll. But with their contracts in place, by the end of it, they're gonna actually have profited over $65 billion before there's any renewals. So it really was a no-brainer for Transurban, and I don't see why New South Wales government couldn't have just done that themselves. And as you see a ton of cars, a ton of trucks driving on some of these toll roads, remember that a truck is actually priced at almost 3 times the amount. So it does depend on what roads you're on, but I've even heard stories of retirees with camper vans being charged the same as a B-double truck just because they've got a trailer. I've even heard of people with utes who have the Ford Falcons that aren't a monobody design getting charged for tradie rates because it's got a cab chassis at the back. And this, again, is just how they incorporate all these little fees to profit over $2 billion a year just here in Sydney. And to really show you guys the monopoly that Transurban has here in Sydney, out of all the toll roads here, they own them all except for 2. Only 2 are not owned by Transurban. And last year, in a 6-month time period, only 6 months, Transurban raked in over $835 million. Yeah, that's a monopoly. And now Transurban themselves have stated that just in this last year, their profits have tripled due to inflation. So they've been profiting over $376 million just in the last year alone. And yeah, total revenue raised, it's almost $3.5 billion. And really what's driving that is the price of inflation. And the revenue is increased by over 6.7%, which is more than inflation. So their profits, they only seem to be going up even when everyone's doing it tough here. Oh, I'm not going on the tollway. That's a toll road. You ain't gonna catch me. I almost got. See, that's the trick too. That's the thing. They're set up in a way where it's very easy to accidentally get onto a toll road, and then you're kind of stuffed because if you miss an exit or you're not quite familiar with the area, once you're on the toll road, that's it. They're charging you. So regardless, you go, one stop, whatever, like you pass through those gates, they're gonna send you a bill, and that really is wrong. And because Transurban is, again, it's an ASX listed public company, you can buy shares on the stock exchange. You go to look at the major shareholders, and it is primarily banks. We've got the Marquee Bank, we've got UniSuper, a lot of super accounts are in here, and BlackRock. So yeah, it's some major players that are investing in this, and it seems to be sort of that Goldilocks monopoly investment, because regardless of what's happening, you have these long contracts locked in, and they go up quite, their contracts are locked in to always have the price increasing. There's more people always coming to Australia, more people using the toll roads, and they're just slowly accumulating more and more roads as well. It's, again, it's a monopoly. And here's sort of the disgusting side of the toll roads here in Australia, because the average punter, you know, we're doing it tough nowadays with inflation, and it's costing families in the affected states almost $60 per week in tolls. Almost $60 a week just to drive on roads in your city. And, you know, look, again, it only falls victim to people who live in Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane, but these toll roads are wreaking havoc. And again, being in Sydney now, if you're a Sydneyite, those figures actually go up to over $82 per week. Over $82 a week to drive around your city, on top of the fuel, on top of the rego, on top of all the bills that we pay. It's not really adding up here. I'll tell you what else is not adding up here in Sydney, because when you're driving, the roads are atrocious. And again, we're paying for these tolls, apparently, so they can build these major motorways, yet our roads that aren't tolled are still absolutely horrible. Like, this is the worst city to drive around in. I am not even making that up. At least here in Australia, the inner streets of Sydney are the worst paved bitumen streets, roads, avenues you are going to find. And I honestly can't drive the speed limit sometimes because the bumps and the road condition is just so bad. And again, when we're paying tolls, we're paying the regos, the fees, the taxes here. Where is all this money going? It's atrocious, man. I swear, some of these roads I've been driving on, they've been here since bloody before Captain Cook arrived, because, dude, it's cracks, there's big potholes, there's craters, and it's damaging people's cars, legitimately. Like, I have to be so careful in my ute. And this is really where it doesn't make sense to me, because why can't the government go to the bank to get the loan? Why is it Transurban, a private company, going and getting a loan and building the motorway? Like, Transurban doesn't have $21 billion in cash to go and build these motorways. Like, they are going to the banks, they're using investors. Like, it's not rocket science here. Why the hell can't the government get involved with this? It should not be something we privatize. It's evil, it's yucky, it's messy. And these toll roads, we should not be having to pay triple, quadruple, 6 times the amount to build it just to have the privilege, you know what I mean? Like, it's not correct. It's not right politically, any sort of way, sensibly, humanitarianly. It's wrong. It's really a messy situation where we never should have privatized these motorways. It's gotten out of hand, and the fees only go up. If you're in a truck, you got a business, there's tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars some of these companies are having to pay just to use the motorways to get around the city and do business. That is not how a city operates. That is not what's meant to happen. It's just not. And if you live in Sydney, you'll know that it's almost impossible to really get around this city properly without using a toll road. You can, and there are people I know who never use a toll road, and they go through the back streets, and you know, I've been doing it since I just came back, but it is a nightmare. It does take a lot more time, and it's just so inefficient. It defeats the purpose here. It defeats the purpose. And are we building these motorways to give to privatized companies and get us taken to town, ringed out to the cleaner to profit off? Like, no, this is not what we should be doing. We should be building the infrastructure so that the city is able to move around quickly, efficiently, and cost effectively. It's, we've let this fiasco get we've let this fiasco get far too out of hand. If it's government owned,
it's not going to be profited on, or at least we should demand that it's not, because once it's paid off, that toll has to be abolished, and that's just the way it needs to operate. And with a growing city like Sydney and the amount of people that live here, there should just be no shortage of money coming into the government. There just really shouldn't be. And if they're saying they don't have enough, well, we need to really be looking at who's running this place, because they're obviously not doing a good enough job, and the money, it's going somewhere. And look, if you've had a really bad encounter with these toll roads, leave a comment down below. Let us communicate down here on this platform and find out a solution to this madness, because I know in the previous video where I did a little bit of a rant on my fines I got, there were some really heartbreaking stories in there, and just a sickening amount of corruption and greed from these toll road operators trying to get money, every cent, off of the going punter. Because, yeah, getting the police involved, trying to get your license involved, like depending on what state and what roads you did it on. I've heard stories of cops, the sheriff, showing up at people's houses saying, hey, look, we've got a debt we've got to sort out. And man, they're supposed to be protecting us, not debt collecting for the toll road companies. It's, yeah, again, it's out of hand. It is out of hand here. And the fees that they tack on are scam worthy. It really is. So something's got to happen.